2 seconds into scrolling crypto Twitter, I spotted something that made me stop mid-sip of coffee. Why are the hardcore Bitcoin Maxis suddenly tossing XRP into every single debate? So hang on here, did Ripple's coin just crash the Bitcoin party, uninvited and wearing a brighter jacket? Now, let me rewind, right? Yesterday, I'm kind of prepping notes for an interview and true story, I have a tight 5-minute window with Tim, the guy who runs the kind of Bitcoin Treasuries podcast and lives, breathes, and probably dreams in orange B logos. And I'm kind of thinking, well, yak about kind of corporate balance sheets and kind of dominated kind of spreadsheets. That is, of course, nerd heaven, right? But the kind of very first thing that Tim kind of blurts out is, dude, the journalists won't stop berating us or berating me about XRP. And I almost kind of spit out my espresso, right? This is like walking into an Apple event and hearing everyone rave about Android. It's a total plot twist. And so I keep on snowballing here, right? Tim tells me that every time that he hops on a financial media Zoom, the host hacks the agenda with one quick XRP question. Now, at first, he thought it was just clickbait shenanigans, stir the pot, rile the internet, collect some views, but he's realized that demand is actually rather real. Now, reporters, they aren't just playing devil's advocate, they're actually bosses want, or at least their bosses want XRP soundbites because their audiences are clamoring for them. Now, when mainstream kind of journals kind of smell the traffic, well, you know that something is bubbling. And so that got me thinking about the kind of bigger problem that we face as retail investors. Information FOMO, right? We chase headlines, where tweets storms, even dog memes, right? Terrified that we're going to miss the next 10-bagger. Now, it's kind of like being stuck on a merry-go-round, that just never stops. And the cotton candy vendor just keeps yelling, limited supply. And right now, the loudest carnival barker is XRP, and trust me, it's getting harder to ignore him. So, picture me then, late last night, neck deep in research tabs, cross-eyed from scrolling way too much, and I'm just trying to understand why XRP, of all of the coins, is kidnapping all of the airtime from Bitcoin. And then a kind of second shoe kind of drops. Dave, Portnoy, yes, that's Mr. Day Trade Global, kind of spots betting, extraordinaire, if you will. He jumps on stage at Consensus 2025 and flat out says that he sees XRP as the next Bitcoin. So everyone's like, wait, what? And Dave's famous for, pizza ratings and YOLO bets, right? But he's got an incredible knack for reading crowd sentiment. So when he kind of waves the flag, millions of people tend to follow the ripple, pun extremely intended. Now, by the way, or at least by the time I should say that my coffee's cold, I stumble onto more breadcrumbs. Ian Carroll, right, the radio voice of Laser Eyes, admits on day 2 of the Bitcoin 2025 conference that he's learning about XRP. Now, he hasn't done a deep dive just yet, but he's at least curious. Now, people, right? Laser-eyed Maxis that are curious, is an endangered species, right? When they start kind of tiptoeing around a new chain, you should probably start paying attention. Now, we can fast forward to Fox Business replays, of course. Portfolio manager Adam Johnson is on air calmly explaining that using a bridge currency, wink wink, could actually slash capital requirements for global transfers by half. And guess which kind of bridge token that he named dropped? That was XRP. The ticker flashes while he kind of talks yield curves and liquidity corridors. Now the camera pans to a bar chart. Half the viewers don't even realize that they're subconsciously just filed XRP equals cost saver in permanent memory. And I'm just sitting there thinking, is it just media buzz? Or is Wall Street quietly sliding XRP into their dessert menus? And you can cue Frankel Templeton, right? The trillion-dollar titan drops paperwork for an XRP spot ETF. The target launch is later this year, and they still kind of need an SEC stamp, but who throws millions of dollars at lawyers and lawyer hours at something that they don't really truly believe in? And then you've got Grayscale and Bitwise who stroll in like late wedding guests, RSVPing for similar products. Save us a seat, we'll bring the shrimp. Meanwhile, of course, you've got Teucrium is already kind of pouring champagne, right? They launched a 2x leverage XRP ETF, and they've kind of filed for an inverse flavor because apparently plain vanilla isn't wild enough. Now, the CEO there, Sal, basically says that we only build funds when we think their underlying asset is legit. So the translation is that their compliance team likes XRP's real-world use case. Now, that's not just Reddit hype then. That's cigar-smoking, smelling boardroom conviction. And guess what? It doesn't end there. At least 8 corporations have publicly declared that they're carving out up to $1 billion each. Yes, that was with a B, to park XRP on their own balance sheets later this year. So imagine CFOs presenting to audit committees. So, line item 12, digital assets. We're buying the same coin the internet loves to argue about on Tuesdays. Now, the fact that those statements even exist tells me and you that momentum has left the chat and turned into something much sturdier: demand. So, here's how I process all of this. We've got 3 puzzle pieces. We've got relentless media questions. We've got ETF filings from asset management juggernauts. And we've got raw corporate treasury purchases. You stick them together and you get a picture that screams: XRP is muscling into the Bitcoin narrative. And whether you cheer or groan, the shift matters because narratives move markets long before fundamentals even catch up. Now, halfway through my note dump, I kind of got, at least I got to know some folks who are already kind of cracking their knuckles, ready to type shill in the comments. So let me kind of park the hype train just for a second here, step off and lay down an ironclad safety net for everybody. And this one, it might just shock you, but I am not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. You should always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses. And this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, so that's the seatbelts kind of refastened. Cool. Let's get back to the fun stuff. Now, I keep a journal for big aha moments, and last night I wrote, if Bitcoin is digital gold, XRP is looking more like digital wire transfer infrastructure, and the bankers finally found the front door. Now, that's not a price prediction. It's an observation that rails matter. And in the banking universe, saving 0.5% on cross-border costs is like finding buried treasure. You multiply that by trillions in yearly settlements, and yeah, you have at least board meeting kind of slide fodder. Now, here is where the story kind of turns a bit personal. A buddy of mine, let's call him Mark for shits and giggles, runs a mid-sized imports and export business. Now, a few weeks ago, he rang me up kind of fuming about $30,000 kind of trapped in correspondent banking limbo. Now, the money kind of ping-ponged through 5 institutions and 2 time zones itself, racked up fees, and is aging like expired milk. Now, that is when he heard about XRP-powered corridors that close transfers within seconds. Now, his exact words were, bro, why are we still using the Stone Age, right? And it's kind of a one-man kind of, anecdote then, right? But it kind of mirrors what Adam Johnson argued on Fox. Half the efficiency, double the grin. Now, skeptics will note that the SEC still hovers over every XRP headline like a rain cloud, and Fair enough. Regulation is the dragon that nobody can slay in one swing. But look at the tea leaves, right? Frankel Templeton, Bitwise, Grayscale, heavy hitters staffed with ex-SEC Illuminati, they kind of aren't shy about filing the paperwork. So they wouldn't be poking the dragon unless they kind of smell policy thawing, right? And, you've got the leveraged ETFs that are already trading. That's kind of not a theoretical product either. It's an actual live balloon. But let's go ahead and zoom in on that kind of leverage position, that piece, because leverage is a spicy salsa. A 2x ETF means if XRP wiggles 2%, the fund wiggles 4%. Now, Wall Street doesn't offer that kind of roller coaster unless it sees trading volume to justify the safety harness. Then kind of spelled it out for us, right? They said this specifically, right? We don't launch unless we believe. Period. Now, that's institutional speak for there's a customer queued around the block. But perhaps the juiciest shift is the Treasury strategy. 8 companies so far say that they are going to be scooping up to $1 billion worth of XRP each. Now imagine CFOs using a kind of slide deck bullet kind of that reads digital liquidity buffer. Right? It signals 2 things. 1, that they think XRP will hold or grow value over time. And 2, that they believe that it solves an operational pain point bigger than price speculation. Otherwise, they would just buy Treasury bills and call it a day. So at this point, I can't help but kind of draw a bit of a parallel, right? Remember the early 2010s when corporate boards laughed at Bitcoin on balance sheets. Fast forward, and now Tesla, MicroStrategy, Block, you name it, they have sprinkled BTC, across quarterly reports like it's seasoning. Now, we might be kind of replaying that movie, just in a different theater with a blue logo on the poster. Now, obviously, nothing kind of sparkles without a bit of risk. Now, the media lights that kind of shine on XRP are bright partly because of the controversy that sells it, right? Kotzman nailed it, right? Interviewers crave friction. And if you've got, or at least if you've ever kind of spent 3 hours in a Twitter space screaming about decentralization, then you know that tension is part of crypto's DNA. But controversy, can act a bit like rocket fuel. Too much and the engine kind of blows up. And just enough and you'll get into orbit. So, what do we do, right? The keyboard warriors and the occasional late night chart watchers actually do with all of this, right? And here's a bit of the playbook, or at least my playbook, right? Scribbled on a kind of dinner napkin between hash brown bites. First, I'm going to absorb the kind of signal through the noise, right? When multiple independent data points, media attention, ETF filings, corporate treasury bets, all line up, they deserve a sticky note on my monitor. The second thing, right? Pressure test your conviction in a safe sandbox. You can hop into the free educational Discord server, the link is in the description down below, and debate it with real humans who can actually call your bluffs. Now, nothing kind of nukes a bad thesis faster than a fresh pair of eyes and a sarcastic gif. Third, yes, shameless plug, but also pure paradigm shifting, right? If you plan to trade any of this momentum, you should probably consider doing it on Kraken Pro. Now, I use them for their deep liquidity and an interface that doesn't make my brain melt. Now, the link below is an affiliate link, so if you do click it and set up and trade there, the channel gets a small kickback at no extra cost to yourself. And it helps keep my coffee fund alive at least 3 a.m. for more research binges like this. And finally, diversify the wilderness, right? If XRP moons, great. If it craters, then you won't be crying into your cereal because your whole net worth wasn't riding shotgun, right? Now, the joy of a diversified crypto portfolio is like sampling every flavor at the ice cream parlor, right? If pistachio disappoints, Rocky Road is still there to hug you. Now, let's recap the roller coaster here, right? Bitcoin podcast Tim Kotzman can't dodge XRP questions. Dave Portnoy, proclaims XRP might be the next Bitcoin. Laser-eyed Ian Carroll is reading the XRP manual. Adam Johnson beams XRP bridges stats on national TV. Frankel Templeton, Grayscale, and Bitwise line up ETF filings. Teucrium, if I pronounced that right, which I probably didn't, already runs a 2x ETF leveraged fund, right? 8 companies are loading up XRP war chests up to $1 billion each. Now, those are not rumors. They are just chess moves. Does that guarantee price glory? No, but it confirms XRP has elbowed into top-tier conversations once reserved for the orange coin alone. And momentum is a bit of a sneaky beast. It doesn't ask permission before kind of flipping the script. Now, I started this video kind of clutching a lukewarm espresso, wondering why Bitcoin diehards were suddenly chatting about a coin that they used to meme into oblivion. Now, I'm ending it realizing that when mainstream media keeps redirecting panelists towards XRP, and when, Wall Street lawyers draft ETF documents, and of course when corporate treasuries sign purchase orders, we can no longer treat XRP like the quirky cousin that you bump into at least only at weddings. It's now a main character, whether we kind of clap or boo. So, next time that someone kind of says, hey, what's up with XRP? You'll be miles ahead of the rumor mill. You can share the stats, you can share the nuance, you can share the dinner napkin playbook, and maybe even slide them into our kind of Discord so that they can test their own hot takes in real time. And so if you've enjoyed this scroll down the XRP rabbit hole, you should probably smash that subscribe button so that the algorithm knows that you like nerdy cliffhangers. And check out the video that's queued up right now.